Welcome to In the Arena, a show where entrepreneurs and leaders take us behind the headlines and into the biggest crises of their careers and lives, and how they made it to the other side. I'm Genet, a startup founder and your host. Today on In the Arena, we're, pardon the pun, running straight into the fire with Oren Aks, who led marketing of the Fyre Festival via Jerry Media. I'm also joined by co-host Matty Mo, tech founder and artist popularly known as the most famous artist. Many business ventures fail, but few strand hundreds of people on an island, land their founder in jail, and get permanently lodged into popular culture as an emblem of failure itself. The Fyre Fest seems to be in a class of its own. With a failure this famous, and frankly this parodied, it's nearly impossible to determine fact from fiction. That's why Oren's first-hand account is so riveting, hearing what it was actually like to earnestly work on promoting Fyre Fest and being at the event itself.
I look at my boss and I said something to him. I was like, this can't be it, or like, this is a mess, whatever I said to him at the time. And he looks at me and this was the second that I was like, we're fucked. He looks me dead in the eyes and this was like the Steve Jobs social distortion field or whatever they call it. Like he's like, what are you talking about, man? Like, this is awesome. This looks like some NASA space Mars, like cool futuristic vibe. And I was like, yo, he drank the Kool-Aid. He's out. He's done. Like, I'm the only one who sees.
Like you feel all of a sudden like you're with an alien. Like all of a sudden like you thought you were with a human, but you like cannot communicate because you're like, I see, like my eyes are open. Yeah. Wow. Personally though, hearing how unclear it was that this famous disaster was a disaster up until the final moments was just really fascinating. A good reminder about how thick the fog of war or crisis can really be. Today, we're incredibly lucky to have Oren Aks, who marketed Fyre Fest as part of Jerry Media, with us. Welcome.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
We also have a special co-host today and a great friend of mine, Matty Mo, who, through his prolific career as an artist, made headlines actually for putting on a fake Fyre Fest as satire in Los Angeles. And that's how you two became acquainted, right?
That's right.
We became kind of internet friends through Matty Mo's antics.
Antics. That's a good way of putting it. And so actually, before we jump into the real thing with Oren, Matty, can you just tell us what even is a fake Fyre Fest so that we have like a micro background on what that means before we do this whole conversation?
Sure. So following the Fyre Fest around 2019, the Hulu and Netflix documentaries dropped covering the Fyre Fest. And I tried to create a space that highlighted the most ludicrous moments of the fest. I rented pigs. I brought in a ton of sand. I had the cheese sandwiches, a fake private jet, Billy in a jailhouse suit. What I saw was a cultural moment unfolding. And it was so absurd that I had to comment, because my job as an artist is to reflect society back on itself. And that's how Oren and I came into contact.
Wow. And Oren, did you just see that online? Like, how did...
Yeah, I never attended. I was living abroad at the time.
You missed out.
I missed out, but I also went to a fake Fyre Festival of my own, which is the real one, if you want to call it real. But yeah.
So with that, let's actually... Let's make you relive it. Just as our kickoff here. So you're working on the event, and we'll cover more of that, marketing and doing a lot on digital, but you actually physically go. You land on Great Exuma, and it seems like you're part of some of the earlier planes where you get rerouted to a restaurant of sorts to sort of, I don't know. I mean, you tell me, as a bit of a waiting zone, but if possible, just explain a little bit of the step-by-step of you get there, you end up at that place, and when you really starts hitting you that this isn't even gonna happen. Like, it's not even a real festival at a certain point.
Yeah, so I was supposed to be there for about 3 weeks. So kind of a few days before, weekend one, stayed midweek, weekend two, and then post festival. I was in charge of creating like a little command center for like social media and content production, which as we were leading up, I realized I couldn't even get walkie-talkies or cars or anything. So we didn't even know how we were going to operate this whole command center because people would have to have live footage, but also be, creating stuff and giving us hard drives from one side of the festival and bring it to the command center. And so nothing actually made sense, but we were like, we'll figure it out on the ground. So we left New York, me and my team, like a small team. Another part of the team was going to come closer to the festival, and second weekend as well, another group of my team. So we get on board to Miami. We took a regular flight. In Miami, we rerouted to like the private jet, smaller airport nearby, which we didn't get on a private jet. It was just like a smaller airplane, which at first I was like, I still haven't been on that private jet experience that they offered everybody. And I was like, I thought we were going to get it, but we didn't. So we got on the plane with a bunch of random people, which again, weren't even VIPs. They were just like some performers, like, people who were going to be dancers, and just really random. Like nobody there made any sense. But we get on this plane, we land, everything's looking picturesque. It's starting to kind of feel very real. And all my doubts that I had prior kind of felt like this was happening. So I'm like, cool, this is about to be like a really luxe moment. And we're about to land in like a beautiful, place in the Bahamas. We get there. There's like a photo of me that was originally the Netflix like icon on when you're searching for the film, and it was also like the header at the LA Times of me and my friend Evan, ex-friend I guess now, but we're taking like a selfie in front of the private jet, and so everything's we're just feeling ourselves. We get into the terminal where we're it's literally the size of like one little house. We go through immigration, whatever, pop out of. And everybody who came with us is supposed to go to some house, different houses, and everybody has these very random coordinates. They're like, oh, we're going to Blue House. Oh, we're going to like Jake's house. Like there are all these like weird names, and we're like, we didn't actually get, nobody actually told us. We didn't think twice of where we're going. So we're starting to try to contact everybody we know with the Fyre team. Nobody's picking up. Again, everything just didn't register. The writing was on the wall, but we just kind of looked at it as like, that's weird. Okay. We were there, I think, 2 or 3 days before the festival. And then we finally realized we're all alone at this airport. It's literally shut down almost because no other flights are coming in at this hour on this day. So parking lot's empty. We're like, who's picking us up? What is going on here? So my boss at the time was like, you know what, let's just hitchhike. So from the airport to the road is maybe 100 feet. So we just walked, stuck our thumb out. We get into like a minivan by a fisherman, picked us up. His car is just packed with gear. And there's like in the Hulu documentary, it ends with me. It like says like where everybody ended up. It says like Oren Aks started his own agency, blah, blah, blah. And you see me with like my head sticking out of a window, and I'm like taking a selfie, and that's out of this like fisherman's car. And he takes us to what we thought was the house we were staying in. We get there, we like open the door, we walk in, we start like choosing rooms. We're like, okay, this is nice. And then we get word that it's not the house, and we just literally broke into somebody's vacation home. So we quickly just scrambled out of there, get back on the road, start hitchhiking again, because there's no cars available on the island. Like there was like a regatta or something in the north of the island.
The regatta, like the island had
separate.
very busy.
So there were no cars available. Even when we needed cars to get to and fro from that command center I mentioned, we knew there were no cars. So anyways, we hitchhiked a second house, same scenario. We walked in, wasn't the right house. Third house, we finally realized, I think the third house, it like took us many times, but we finally arrived at this like really rundown house. No refrigeration,
So,
no
like,
air conditioning,
the
no
houses are like
electricity.
going downhill.
Yeah, the first one was real nice, and it just kind of, yeah. Also, the entrance was like all these trees that had no leaves, so it kind of looks very spooky. It looked like a haunted house. But the beach in front of it was honestly one of the best I've ever seen. So we were like, okay, it's fine. And then eventually we were like making contact with the fire team. Billy was staying at some luxe hotel across the street from. So there were Sandals Hotel and then another really fancy hotel right across the street from where Fyre was supposed to be. And so we got the coordinates, and we were like, let's just figure it out. We'll hitchhike, and we get another car. Someone took us to this hotel. We get in. The fire team is like so excited to see us. It's kind of nightfall at this point, so they're like, let's have dinner, let's have champagne, let's celebrate. So I'm like,
Wow.
fuck it, let's get champagne. I'm ordering a lobster. I'm like, it's I'm like,
so
it's
the
on
fire
them.
team is like in a
They've
good
been living
mood.
there.
Like that's yeah, but
they've been living in a fancy hotel. They're feeling good.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Sort of.
Yeah, like their little bubble that they've been in for like a few weeks was just at a fancy hotel.
The cracks weren't showing at all. Like their demeanor was positive, and they were thinking like everything was going through.
They literally were like, let's pop champagne. We're doing this massive cool thing.
We're like, we're about to do it. Yeah.
And we're like 24 hours away from implosion at this point.
Yes. I think it was 24.
So you have this nice dinner, and so you're still like, there've been a couple weird things, but you don't see like the major red flags at that point.
Other than the car situation, getting picked up or not getting picked up, and the people on a school bus and whatever, that to us was like, okay, fine, there's no cars. But now in hindsight, we're like, if they can't even pick up their own people in normal fashion, something is up. So anyway, we finished dinner. We hitchhiked back to our place. That night was like that infamous storm. Our like roof was leaking, and whatever. We were again in a house, so and at least 45 minutes away. Like the hitchhiking was quite a distance. Yeah. So we're 45 minutes away from the actual venue. So we're very separated from reality. Fast forward the next day, again, we're hitchhiking to the venue, and now it's broad daylight. So we're like going to see it from the morning, and we arrived, and there's like a little hill, so you kind of get into the grounds, and they have like a little hill that then goes down into like this valley of where all the tents and the festival is supposed to be. And right as we kind of hit that like top of the hill, and I saw it for the first time, the layout, and I couldn't see the details of the tents all messed up from the storm or whatever, but I could just see there's no luxurious anything in front of me. And I'm still at a distance, and I don't have the best eyesight either, but you could just tell there's nothing luxurious up ahead. And also the way that it was an old development. I guess they were trying to develop a hotel there. So it's all concrete. So it doesn't feel like a beach. It's right on the water.
It looks desolate.
It looks desolate. And backtrack a second. So 2 weeks prior or something, I was at MoMA in New York, and they like the Syrian war was just kind of starting out, or kind of in the early years. And so the MoMA had this exhibit where they had like a big, they showcased a lot of what people, like the refugees, were going through. And one of the things that they had there was like a FEMA tent that you could walk into and touch and see like the real, what like refugees are going through. And I kid you not, it was the same thing. So when we're going over the hill, I was just like, I had this like, that's the same tent. And so I look at my boss.
It's not good
I turn to him
to have a Syria reference in your music.
Yeah. Yeah, I had this like very instant like, that's not it. So that's not luxury. So I look at my boss, and I said something to him. I was like, this can't be it, or like this is a mess. Whatever I said to him at the time. And he looks at me, and this was the second that I was like, we're fucked. He looks me dead in the eyes, and this was like the Steve Jobs social distortion field, or whatever they call it. Like he's like, what are you talking about, man? Like, this is awesome. This looks like some NASA space Mars, like cool futuristic vibe. And I was like, yo, he drank the Kool-Aid. He's out. He's done. Like I'm the only one who
right.
sees
Like you feel all of a
what's
sudden like you're with an alien. Like you, like all of a sudden, like you
yeah.
thought you were with a human, but you like cannot communicate because you're like, I see, like my eyes are open. Yeah. Wow.
And people were paying like 10, 15 grand to stay in these FEMA tents.
So the first ticket holders, like the people who really jumped into it without a lineup, without a location, without I think even dates, like anything, literally just bought it based off of my good design on Instagram. They got a good deal actually. They paid like $700 and they got like the whole package, like which again is not a good deal now, but like
good
in
deal
hindsight,
in air quotes.
yeah. I mean, it's like a $700 trip to the Bahamas that
Totally.
whatever.
Yeah.
But $700
Yeah.
at the time, I thought it was crazy that they even priced it. It was like a pre-sale price, but then it went up to like a few thousand, 10,000, and then in the couple days or weeks before, they were really trying to pump up the pricing, and I think they made everything like sold out on purpose, and only had like the $250,000 tickets where you got like a villa and a boat and whatever. Like that was only available because they were trying to like make some quick money at the end.
Make money and limit people. So you're in this golf cart and you kind of realize, like, I guess I would pinpoint that as like you have this sinking feeling, but do you feel like in that moment like this isn't even going to happen, or do you just think like, wow, people are going to be disappointed, but there's going to be music? Like when do you think that you cross over being like, this isn't even like happening?
So everybody was still talking pretty highly, like it's going to happen at this point. Like my team, and I mean, not like more my boss was talking that way. Like the people that were my level in the agency I think we were pretty realistic to each other and like kind of went off on our own. There wasn't anything for us to do, so we were just kind of like biding time. And then the Fyre team definitely was talking like it was going to happen, but they were just scrambling because the storm kind of dispersed mattresses and whatever. Not that that made a difference at this point. Their stages weren't even ready. The sand wasn't obviously on the ground, and nothing was ready. It was, and then there was like a certain point in the day that they were like, let's just distract everybody. Because the buses are now starting to come in this day. The flights, the buses. So they started rerouting them to this little restaurant that's like on a beach. It was kind of fun, honestly. It turned into like a micro party. They started handing out like Casamigos bottles to everybody, like a full bottle to every single person who entered the restaurant, which I was like, this is excessive. But I was like, I'll take a bottle, I was like, I don't even drink that much, but we'll take it for the house, we'll party later. So me and all my friends, we all have like a bottle. I'm not really drinking it. We put it in our backpack for later. Everybody else at this party who was there for the festival is like, thinks they're going to party. So they're like, let's drink the whole fucking thing. So now everybody is in the sun eating like, a little bit like burgers and stuff, but eventually the food runs out. Like the sun is setting. People are just now getting like trashed and are getting like anxious and kind of confused, and kind of they want to get started with this thing. They're confused at why it's nightfall already and the festival hasn't begun. So you could start feeling the energy of the party went from this massive vibe to like a massive anger, confusion, and nobody's there to answer. Yeah. And we're kind of now on the side. We're just sitting on a dock and playing with our drone and being really confused. We're just waiting for the Fyre team to kind of message us.
People at this party don't really know you're affiliated. So you're not like getting questions or anything. You're just really like observing, right? Okay.
Yeah, we're sober too because we were there to work. So we were on the side. Again, we're on this dock while the restaurant has like a dock where people with a boat can come in and get lunch. So we're on the dock. We're just sitting there, and again, it's beautiful. So we're just enjoying it. But we can see people are like now climbing the restaurant. They're on the roof. People are just doing, they're so drunk. And at one point, when we finally got in touch with our boss and some Fyre people, they told us to come to the festival grounds. And once we got to the grounds, we realized everybody that arrived put all their stuff into a massive shipping container, all their suitcases. And one of our photographers that we flew in the next day, she was on one of these just generic buses. So she had to put her stuff on this bus. And now we're trying to get her stuff out of there so we can get her to our house, but she can't get her suitcases. And we're trying to give her, reasoning, whatever, we don't even know. And the fire team had this like house that was actually fully built house on the grounds. I forget the name of it. Mm-hmm. They had a name for this house. And that was like their command center. It was a really nice house, actually. So we go in the house. Everyone is freaking out. I mean, it's like, I don't even know how to explain it, but people just running. Billy is like hiding. Billy like locked himself in a room to like focus. Grant, the CMO at the time, he's just like strung out. He's just like, I don't even know what to tell you, but everything's fine. Nobody has answers. We're just sitting there. I'm literally just waiting. I have nothing I'm the social media guy, so I don't have content to take right now because it's a shit show. So I'm just waiting.
But also at this point, it's such like a departure from champagne at the hotel the other night. Mm-hmm. So that's a pretty fast turn. Like, so you're probably processing that, like, because it just is a pretty it's like as soon as guests start arriving, effectively, like no one from the fire team is probably seeming okay.
Yeah, I don't know what they were dealing with because there were so many things to deal with. But they knew that they had these like an angry mob at the restaurant, and they now needed to figure out not only the restaurant or the angry mob, but also the festival and then Blink-182 started tweeting that they're not coming, and all these like it's just a domino effect, and they're still trying to stitch it together and put out messages to online and to ticket holders that everything's fine, everything's happening, and it's all by the minute.
Did they ask you to participate in that? Did you get asked to participate in that because you were doing social media stuff, or were they like kind of command centering that? And then also, or corollary, like how much were you following along online? Was there an online narrative yet?
I didn't even have reception. So that was a big problem for me because if I wasn't at the house where they were like their command center, I didn't have Wi-Fi. So I didn't get any information on what's happening online. Once in a while, my boss would get a text from the people in the New York office being like, "Are you guys okay?" And he would just sweep it under the rug or not tell us what he was texting the team. But the fire team wanted me to post a bunch of stuff, and we kind of had to walk them back a few times being like, you don't want to say that. You don't need to just deal with your thing. Like, don't worry about Instagram right now.
What kind of stuff? Were they trying to already do damage mitigation? Like they wanted to tweet positive things maybe it was Instagram, but like do positive posts basically.
Both. Yeah.
Try to change. Yeah.
Can you run us through some of the copy that they might have floated your way?
I would have to pull it up somewhere, but it was all just basically things saying everything is still happening and it's all good and we're excited to host everybody, and we're everything just sounded still as if they were putting out the messages. Yeah, but as if it was like the type of message that was supposed to come out at that hour, as if the successful festival was happening. Giving out public information to the people on the island and kind of giving these messages of updates for festival goers and things like that, where to go and what to do. At this point, I'm getting a little peckish. I'm trying to get some food, but there's nowhere to eat or drink. And I forget who told me, but there was a workers' tent for the people like putting together the festival, and it was still in the grounds, but it was just kind of like off to the side. And they told me, you could just go eat with them. So I walked over to like where the construction workers are and whatever, and like I pick up like a little tray, and I'm waiting in this line with everybody, and everyone like the chef and all the people sitting there like loved it that I was eating with them. They're like cracking jokes with me, and I was super down. I didn't even care that food's food. And so I'm getting the cheese sandwich, I'm getting like a little salad, and then actually this is one of my favorite parts of the story that kind of got swept under the rug as part of the cheese sandwich is there was like a birthday cake as like dessert, just like a generic chocolate frosting sprinkles on top kind of cake. And she just would cut you a little square and give it to you on the same plate as like a dessert. And I was, that no one ever saw that photo, but the chocolate cake thing is iconic.
Somehow the favorite, and the fact that like it's so rare that a random cheese sandwich that you eat becomes like a famous like meme.
Yeah, as I'm eating it, I'm not even understanding the cultural relevance of it. I'm just I'm just hungry. So
you didn't even take a photo of yours. You just fucking ate it like a savage.
I know. I just scarfed
kidding.
it. I probably went even for a second. I was so hungry. We're just in the sun all day,
Okay, so there's actually so much I want to cover. Can you try to pinpoint when it becomes clear like everyone actually has to go home? Like there's no musicians playing. Like so, I think we know this lead in now, but it's like I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. At this point, you're still like going with the flow. Like it seems like it might happen, but that changes at some point.
Yeah, so after the cheese sandwich, I'm still wasting time. I have nothing to do. My whole team is kind of walking around and because we're not part of the angry mob, so we're not over there dealing with that.
Right.
We're not in the fire teams like Sphere because they have their own things to deal with. We're just there to take content. So there's no content to take. So we're just waiting and sitting. And I was so bored. And then we found our CEO and we were talking to him about what do we do? And he goes, "We're quitting. We're going to leave right now." So,
oh my gosh. Okay. So him saying that is like the final.
No. So he says this and he says this to us, he's got his own priorities. He has to keep his team also safe and, take care of his employees. So he's like, "We're going to quit. I'm going to send you guys back to the house." That was like 45 minutes out. He goes, "I'm going to stay here and try to save like basically Billy, save this whole thing and help." So there's like photos of Billy like standing on desks and like kind of talking to an angry crowd. So before he did that, my boss, who's much more of a level-headed guy, he was doing that. He was trying to he's like a really good dude at the time. Like he really tried to just help whoever he could, give any information. He had nothing to offer either. He was just, but Billy was such like a hot mess that he couldn't even.
Yeah.
And he's like 23, like this, and my boss was like, I'm like an adult. So he's trying to be the adult while Billy's just kind of like, ugh. And eventually, when Billy takes over, I don't know what my boss started doing, but he put us on a car and like another hitchhiked car and got us out of there. So we went back to the house and we're kind of blind to what was happening at this point. And then around midnight, something really late, he finally shows up. My boss shows up at the house and starts kind of telling us. And he's like, "Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so this." He's really kind of, almost shell shocked. He's like, "You're not going to believe this. Like, you have no idea what actually happened after you guys left." And we really didn't have a grasp of how bad, because we didn't see the mob and we didn't see any of it at that point. But we did get instructions to create like a little, and the way we were posting on Instagram was like per row. At the time, we weren't posting one square at a time. We would post rows. So every time you post, it's got to be three designs. That was just the aesthetic. And so I could design something to update, the public, but I didn't actually have a way to upload anything because I don't have Wi-Fi. And I don't think we had hotspots at the time on my boss's phone, but he had a little bit of reception. So we had to kind of design a row without my computer. So we were on his phone using, I don't know, like a notes app or something, screenshotting a white background and filling the like, so we just basically did one white row with like text of like what happened. So he's basically designing in his like Word, like in a Word editing app. It's very like MacGyver-esque.
And that design was meant to tell people not to come anymore. Like, was it like a final?
It wasn't.
Okay. Yeah.
It was more of this there were some unforeseen things, and we didn't expect it, like very kind of diplomatic. It was still kind of pretending like.
And your boss is like, is your boss at this point, like, does he have permission to do that from the fire team, or is he kind of like, this is a moral issue, like I need to post this?
I think it was both. I think he actually told them that we have to do this, and they gave him carte blanche to do whatever he feels fit. Okay. We didn't give too much information. We kept it, again, very generic and very, safe, to make sure that the truth is out there, but it's still not the full truth. So we post it, and I think there was actually a really funny tweet. I want to say it was DJ Tiesto or some massive DJ out there. He like responded to the tweet, which is actually iconic, and it was like, even in their failure, they were still like aesthetic or something like that, which I kind of love that. We still kept like the same font and whatever. So anyway, so we kind of quit, and then we were stuck there for about a week.
So this was a real Lord of the Flies moment. Like the whole thing.
Yeah, we had no food in the house either, and we had no idea what to do. We would go to like these grocery stores. They weren't grocery stores. They were more like provision stores that have food that's, it's the island didn't have much fresh stuff. So there's a lot of stuff that doesn't go bad in their stores. So we would get all these really random things and just cook them on the spot because we couldn't refrigerate them. I remember we ate a lot of Snickers and like, stupid stuff. But we finally got, word about the regatta, and we hitchhiked to the regatta and started eating like local food and making friends with the locals, and just did our own thing for the next couple of days and swam a lot and just kind of, we didn't get a lot of information. Again, we still were disconnected from the world. We had no Wi-Fi, cell phone reception. So even until we got back to New York, like 3 days later, I didn't know what happened. And we never went. Oh, I missed a big point. So when my boss came back at midnight to tell us like what happened when he stayed back, I do say, like, as much as there was chaos, this guy really does have, I don't know if it's like the balls or the vision or whatever you want to call it, but it's already midnight. The whole thing is done with. Everybody is like sleeping. And he goes, we're going to go break in now, and we're going to go film a documentary. And we're looking at him like...
He's like, this is an opportunity.
Yeah. And I looked at him just like, why are you... this is so dumb.
That's gutsy.
Let's go, I guess.
Did you guys do that?
Yeah. So we hitchhiked up. Yeah, so we hitchhiked at like midnight or whatever, and
Is that where some of that footage comes from?
Yeah, if you saw some like night footage, I mean, okay, so it wasn't very successful, but we get there, and there's like a security guard at the gate, and we just tell the driver, again, it's just some random guy on like the road. It wasn't, we just tell him, don't stop. Like when you get to the gate, just go. And we're just going to flash our badges. We're going to flash our badges out the window really quickly, but just keep driving. Don't let them stop you. And this poor guy, he just was like, okay. So we kind of did, and they like opened the gate for us, and we get in. Again, we go over that hill. We start going down, and it's like very eerie, and people are there. People are sleeping in the tents, whatever tent was left. But they were like, the grounds were silent. So it was very eerie. And we we turn the headlights off, and we're like creeping now. We're creeping down this like path, and we're just trying to get any footage that we can. And at one point, there was like the festival director, or I forget his title. He commandeered like an ambulance, like an out of commission ambulance, or maybe it was in commission. I don't know. And it was literally the only vehicle. So this guy caught us. But he thought that we were just like lost. He didn't really realize our full intention. So when he caught us, he was almost like, "Hey guys, like everything good? Like let me get you guys home. You guys look like you're lost." Yeah, and he was kind of just like, I think we told the guy who dropped us off to go home, or I forget what happened with him. But our little escapade got kind of wrapped up pretty quickly when that guy showed up at the ambulance. And then he basically, took us home in the ambulance.
He took you.
But we tried.
Okay. Your favorite quote for me from the documentary is saying that your child was Satan, like something along those lines. Does that ring a bell to you? Kind of realizing. So I think that something like. I want to rewind in a second of like the breadcrumbs that kind of lead us here back in New York. But before that, like, do you feel like you start processing while you're on the island? Like, wow, I marketed this thing. Like the marketing is arguably the only success of the event. Like the marketing was amazing. Like just, and then the event is like failing to live up to it. And so do you start processing that while you're there? Like, oh, I like marketed this thing and it never is like not real, blah, blah, blah. Or do you feel like you really have to be home and like completely out of that context to even start processing that?
Kind of both. There were moments, I guess I didn't realize the full scope of the disaster still on the island. I definitely, when I got back to New York, it was, I think, Sunday night, and when we showed up for work on Monday, we used to have like a full team meeting every Monday morning, and that one we skipped. It was like very awkward tension in the office. And I remember walking in, my boss was kind of in the meeting room, and I walked in and I go, I'd like to debrief what just happened. Like, we need to talk about this. And I was pretty shook up at that point because I kind of was getting messages at that point, and it was starting to come back to me. And I just remember the only thing that really freaked me out was I was worried that somebody died, or somebody got really hurt, or something bad happened.
Because who knows?
I didn't. The whole time we had no communication. So, and also the internet didn't really have much. We weren't as online as we are these days. You know what I mean? It was like 2016 or something, which we were online, but it wasn't like Twitter was talking, but it still was not as much information that pours out of things today. Yeah. So I needed something. I was like, you must know more than I do. And he just looks at me and he goes, the agency lost over $1 million on this. We don't have time for that. We have other clients to tend to. Just get back to work. And so I was really shook. I was still kind of like, I didn't even get that closure. I didn't get any information. I was still kind of like Googling it myself. And it still didn't really hit me until like months later when like I started reading like the FBI is getting involved. And I was like, is the FBI going to talk to me? Like, what have I done? What is this thing? Why does it keep getting worse and worse and worse? And I was really, it felt like the walls were kind of caving in on me every day. And I didn't realize the full extent of it, I think, until I knew that they were filming a documentary. Like my team was still working on that documentary, the Netflix one. But they didn't include me. Like they didn't want me involved in it at all.
Mm-hmm. And what was your understanding at the time of why? Like,
no idea.
At the time, how did you process it? Just confusion. Yeah.
Confusion, and also kind of.
Did you at any point feel like you had to lawyer up? Like, did you start getting like your friends or family to?
Yeah. So my cousin was about to graduate as a lawyer. She was in New York, and she came to the office, and I showed her how cool our office was, and she was like all about us, and she was like, how cool, I want to work here. And I was like, no, it's not cool. We're not having fun anymore. The fun is over. And we went to lunch, like an extended lunch. At this point, I was there for a few months, and they were post-Fyre, and they were kind of just not giving me any work. And I was doing a lot of I was one of the co-founders. And I had equity. So I think my theory, and I've heard from kind of like a third party version of this story, is that they just tried to bleed me out. I don't think they could have fired me, or just didn't have the backbone to do it. So I realized that they were just trying to bleed me out. And I was sitting there, I'd sit on my computer and literally watch movies, and like as a fuck you, like on purpose, putting it on my dual monitor. I'd have like my Bitcoin prices and my Netflix, and just be like, you guys need help with anything? And they'd be like, no, we're good, thanks. And they're like, everybody else is overworked and drowning and losing clients because they're overworked. And I'm like, here when you need it. And they're like, no, we're good.
And Fyre Fest is the turning point, just to be clear. Like, like meaning that you, before Fyre Fest, like you had a good working relationship with these people. So like this moment, like, is a real turn, right? Like it's a like office culture before, you're like fully in the mix and everything, and then office culture after, it's like this weird wall, right? Is that sound
persona
accurate?
non grata? Yeah, totally. I mean, they were all still hanging out. Everybody was still hanging out. I get no invites. I get no like clients. I'd get no respect in the office, or even like people looking at me. It was like people would walk by and not even give me eye contact. Which I'm like, I literally,
at the time you didn't know why.
I still don't really know why. I don't understand why I was the target of all this, because I carried the agency on my back alone. Like Fyre was our only client. So, and nobody helped me with it. I did everyone's job. And so I felt a little disrespected. You know, I kept the company afloat for months and nobody even saw through that. It's not my fault that they fucked it up. You know, I did my job more than I used to sleep in the office like multiple times a week because I was working all night long, and I'd get called at like 11 at night to go design something and have it ready by 8 a.m. And I'm like, I'm on it. I was a soldier. I really cared about this project.
You mentioned that your boss, like the one who was there, seemed like a pretty solid dude. Like, did you also like couldn't have a good dialogue with him after?
No, nobody. And he would lie to me, you know, he would tell me like, we don't have any work, so don't worry about it. Just keep like, you know, doing your thing. And I'm like, I see the other designers literally losing the clients because they can't keep up. And he would just lie to me. And so then I would see that on the calendar, the company calendar was open. So I would see like documentary meeting or whatever. And I was like, I know what you're doing. And they'd go in the back room and never invite me and invite all these people who weren't even part of the project. So I was like, why are you talking about my project if you don't even know what happened, if you don't even have the assets? Like, what is this about? So that was I think the turning point where I was like, you guys are clearly up to something, and if you're not including me in it, then what's the point? And that's when I quit. So after like 6 months, I used to sit there and just do nothing and just left. And
so it's about 6 months after Fyre Fest, like roughly.
But I knew the documentary was being worked on, and it was still pissing me off that I wasn't, you know, getting any respect for my work or being involved in it. And so when I left, I actually was like, I'm gonna take care of myself, just like you guys took care of yourself. So I always worked on my personal laptop because in the beginning, we never had the budget to buy everybody computers. So I always worked on my personal laptop. I signed up for every social account like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, whatever else we were doing. I was always using my personal email because we had so many. I had to sign up for so many accounts. Usually at Jerry Media, we always started new Instagrams for different projects, that I always had to like use multiple emails and multiple iPod touches. We had like many iPod touches that had like dozens of accounts logged in. So I was always using the social accounts on my personal device with my personal email, and all the files were on my personal hard drive on my personal computer. So when I left, I just moved everything onto my hard drive, deleted it, and quit through an email and just walked out. I didn't say bye to anybody. I suspended every account. Like, I didn't delete them, but I suspended them so you can't find them when you search for them. And I just was like, fuck you guys, basically. Like, you're not going to get my project. You're not going to profit off of my hard work. Like, this isn't going to be a thing. If you think you're going to have like this big second coming, like, sorry, party's over. And I just left and sent like a company-wide email. And yeah.
So is that why you're in one documentary but less prominent in the other?
They have footage of me in the Netflix one just because there was one guy there that was always doing a vlog. And he actually has the only of like professional footage of Fyre. Like, Netflix licensed it, and you can see kind of like they erased his watermark on his videos. And that was just part of his vlog. There's like a few parts in the Netflix one where he's like live vlogging, and I'm just in the background like talking about something. So the Netflix one, I was never approved, and I actually like tried to sue Netflix at one point, but that was too difficult. And I basically took everything offline, took all the hard drives, and when I read that Hulu was creating another documentary, I reached out to everybody in the article. I reached out to the producer, director, people at Billboard, the CEO of Mike, and randomly, like, the Billboard CEO responded to my LinkedIn within like 30 minutes. And then he's like, we need to get on a phone call like right now. 10 minutes later, I'm on a phone call with him. 10 minutes later, he's got the director on the phone. Like 5 days later, they flew me out to New York to be in the documentary. And I just basically handed them the hard drive, got my lawyer to approve the contract that they would, indemnify me if anything happened. I was like, I want Hulu to indemnify me at all costs. Looking back now, I kind of was naive. I should have got a lot more like money. I didn't get any money. I was literally just trying to tell the truth. I was like trying to just correct my career path. So when they realized they had no footage, they started to call me all the time. I would get phone calls and FaceTimes and emails and texts from them being so friendly and like, I just knew. Yeah. But I pretended. I was like, I have no idea where it all went.
So this is like, most jobs that one takes don't end in documentaries, multiple documentaries, crisis. and someone going to prison, and then a cultural moment where we all know what cheese sandwich you're talking about. And so this is a very unique life experience. And if you can rewind, like, this is a very dramatic year plus of your life, but if you can rewind, give us approximately how many months before Fyre Fest D-Day actually happens where you start working on it. Like, is it 3 months ahead, 6 months ahead, a year ahead? And then any breadcrumbs you remember where, in hindsight, because hindsight is 2020, you feel like that was weird, I wish I asked more questions, or any of those types of things, in that lead up before you even go to the Bahamas.
Yeah, the lead up, I had a few moments that I realized there was some weird stuff going on. We had a client at the time, and that was like a mattress company. There was like a moment where there was a ton of mattress companies like Oscar and whatever. So we had one of those competitors, and we remember talking to them about just like logistics of shipping their mattresses like internationally if a client wanted one. And so when we were in meetings with them talking about logistics of how are they bringing mattresses to the island, that was a weird one. They didn't have a really good answer for us. And we remember looking at them being like, are you sure that's going to work? Because we have this client who says, and they're like, yeah, it's fine. Another time that was weird to me was like, they would show me rendering, like a rendering of the festival. They didn't actually have footage. So they showed me a rendering of like the beach and like people at the beach partying and whatever, and all the stages and all these like structures that they built. And I used to work in an interior design firm, and I remember the scrutiny of designing even a rendering and putting fake people into a rendering, and how detailed that had to be. Like, everybody had to be to scale. You can't just like put some guy in the background who's just a little bit bigger, and the shadows on them had to be correct. Like, the lighting had to be correct. So I'm looking at this, and there's like a guy with like rollerblades in the ocean. You could see his rollerblades in the water, and like different shadows.
That sounds
like,
accurate. I mean,
yeah,
he was probably
like,
there, though, to be fair to them. Yeah.
I hope he was. Yeah. And you see like different shadows and different angles and like different sizes. And I'm like, who did this rendering? Like, where? And like the buildings didn't look to scale and nothing. So, but that was me. I only understood that. So when I called that out, nobody cared. People were like, it looks beautiful.
Right. And also that's
awesome.
Like a designer. It's like a designer noticing details. Like, people aren't necessarily like, oh, this is a red flag. What about financial? Like, obviously, famously now, we all know that there's some Ponzi scheme aspects. Like, Billy, like, continually coming up with new schemes and new sources of money, kind of like, begging Peter to pay Paul behavior of like money sucked from one place, pay someone, like keep everything going. Is there any evidence of money problems? Like, was your agency being paid?
Yeah.
Were you being paid? Like, or anything where you're like, this financially, like there's concerns about any of the finances?
Yeah, there were a few moments in the beginning that felt a little odd, and like the amount of money that they needed. And I remember they would say, "Oh, we need another blah, blah, blah." And we would internally be like, how are they going to get that? And then poof, a day later, they just had $5 million. And that would just keep happening. And that conversation just kept happening, even though different vendors were quitting. Like VaynerMedia was originally doing the media buying, and they weren't like getting paid or something. And so Vayner quit. And instead of my boss looking at Vayner of all the agencies, like we're like a micro, agency compared, he looked at that as an opportunity to take on more business. And so he told the Fyre team that we do media buying, which we didn't, and I've never done it. So right after that phone call where he got that business, he puts on the phone and he goes, all right, everybody go into like a phone booth and watch every single YouTube video on media buying and circle back at the end of the day, and we're going to like teach each other what we learned. So I kind of understood it. I still felt very confused by it, but I was like, okay, we're doing this. And my first media buy was for, I think it was like $1 million. So they put in their credit card.
Normal.
Yeah, totally normal for, first time, but just got to dive into the deep end. So they give us their credit card or whatever information, and it's connected to Facebook media manager or whatever. And I, at the time, as a graphic designer, was trying to sell my own prints on my Instagram. So I have 2 separate accounts on the media side. And at one point, so my credit card's also attached. And at one point, the Fyre credit card bounced or whatever, didn't register, and $1,000 got taken out of my personal account. And I was like, I can't afford that. I live in New York on this like meme,
right?
Like paycheck. Like I work for a meme page, so I'm not making anything.
A meme paycheck.
Yeah, like it was not a good, like I took a huge pay cut to work there. So, and I lived in Manhattan, and I was like, I can't afford $1,000 being taken out by these guys.
Right. And
I told my boss, and he's like, it's fine. Just they're good for their money. And again, one of the guys who was like at the head of Fyre was a childhood friend of Elliot, who started Fuck Jerry. So the conversation would always be like, no, that's our boy. Like he's good for the money. And I'm like, our boy isn't a way of paying the bills. So after they took that $1,000 out of my account, my boss just walked over to my desk and just put like $1,000 cash and was like, just forget it. Let's move on. And so that, I moved on. But then the credit card bounced again. And I was like, listen, I had a vacation coming up. I told you months ago that I'm going to Spain for a week to see my best friend. I'm going to go and take a real vacation because I've been sleeping in the office. I've been just like not seeing my friends or dating or doing anything for the last couple months. If they don't pay, I'm going to enjoy my vacation. If they pay, I will get online while I'm in Spain and keep working. And he was like, you know what? Fine. It was like the first time that he like accepted that there was something kind of
acknowledged
off.
That it was a little weird.
It was a little weird. And I was telling him, I was like, listen, I've been a freelance designer for like so many years. This is the number one red flag, that you stop working. You hold them hostage. You like lock them out of their own accounts. Right. You just say, that's what, you haven't paid for the product basically.
Right.
So he let me go. I'm on my vacation. I'm having finally some good time. And literally 48 hours before I leave, it's like late at night. Me and my friend just got back. We're like drunk at his apartment. We just went out partying. And I get this phone call or text or whatever, and he's like, "We're back on. I need this, 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 this." And I'm just like, I looked at my friend. I'm like, I'm gonna have to design now.
I mean, how many months before the event would you say this is roughly? Like, I'm just trying to place it like, oh, it's 5 months out, or it's like 1 month out, you know, at when their card is bouncing and different stuff.
The card, the first time it bounced and took 1,000 from me, I think was like 2 months before. And then the second one when I was in Spain was about a month before. And then the mattress situation and the rendering were also, I think, 2 months before. Because before that, we really had nothing to see. Nothing to see. We didn't hear about like logistics. It was very much just conversations about like social media and like, you know, just having fun. And the meetings would just be like...
And then 2 months ahead, there's like a render of a dude with like rollerblades in the ocean.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, well,
somewhere.
I guess
it's such
happening.
A good rendering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were the orange square, right? Like that was your brainchild, because that's kind of what made this thing take off culturally before it took off culturally for uploading.
Yeah, before the cheese sandwich, the real thing was the orange tile. So I honestly don't remember like the exact moment that I kind of came up with it, but I was like, let's use the colors that they already have. Like orange is super powerful. They had like this dark blue, and I was like, that's not going to stop anything. But orange was super, like I didn't change the orange. It was their orange. It was actually the same orange that Instagram has. It's like a default color orange when you change the text. I wanted something that other people can make or participate in without having to have like Illustrator and be like, you know, Photoshop experts.
Yeah.
So it all worked. It all lined up pretty easily. And yeah, we just kind of created this tile and pitched it to them. And again, I don't remember the full conversation, but it just worked. Everybody was into it, I guess, and we just did it. Again, it was such like a not important part of the timeline that now it's funny that it has become so epic. Like I could never have expected it to take off.
And even for you tell me if this is accurate, but even for you at the time, like the fact that the whole team, like between you and the other agency and then the Fyre team and everyone, the fact that you could get all these really famous people like to post this thing that you came up with, and post this orange square and like use the hashtag and promote the event, like that had to somehow subdue the fears you had, like, you know, the bounce credit card and everything. Mm-hmm. It still seemed like the social proof. It just seems like the one story, the drumbeat of the story is that somehow social proof keeps the train on the tracks, despite the fact that there's no train, like there's nothing in the train. Like it's like, despite all the facts, like the social proof just keeps it barreling forward. Like, do you feel like even yourself, like that was somewhat convincing? Like, oh wow, like I can imagine coming up with the orange squares and then seeing like really famous people posting it and stuff must be motivating, kind of.
You know, it's funny because I'm like very not impressed by people like that even today. Like back in the day, I've never been like, models, influencers. Like I'm not the kind of person who pays any, and I'm from LA. So I like grew up around celebrities and I just never thought of them as like somebody who puts their stamp on something and I'm like, that's it. And I remember the time that wasn't what convinced me. Like what actually was going on in my head was that, again, I'm a designer. This is just another client. And this is how agency works. And I've been a freelancer. I've dealt with tons of bullshit and everybody trying not to pay you and trying to scheme you and change things and give you their opinion. So all that I could think about was, this is just another client. There's nothing weird here.
Yeah.
And
I'll just do my best work for them.
Yeah. I literally looked at it as just a client paid us. So that's how official it is.
Let's
you know what I mean?
Our best work.
Yeah.
Has your perspective changed?
Yeah. Now I'm like, who are you? Where's your money coming from? Do you have investors? Do you have a budget? Like, I can show you emails. I literally have zero fucks. I literally emailed this guy yesterday who called. Somebody reached out to me on my website for a festival that's happening next year. And I'm like, oh, really? A festival?
You're like, I'm kind of sensitive about festivals.
No, I'm not. I'm just like, I don't like, I'm not scared anymore. Like I used to be as a designer, it was really hard for me to talk about money and actually, and I also didn't realize that I need to figure out where the money's coming from. Now I straight up, I'm like, who are you? what is like, why are you doing, like, I ask all these questions and people probably think I'm like grilling them for no reason. And I take a lot of precaution in general. Sometimes I still own the Fyre Festival Instagram and all the social accounts, but they're all 2-factor authenticated. And I'm like, I constantly get texts and emails, people trying to get in constantly. So
Sure.
I'm aware that people out there are still, and I get like weird, fishy clientele still. People think I'm just going to be down to do more scam, like as if I went into this like I wanted to do a scam in the first place. So I still get a lot of weird like phishing type of outreach. And so I really take a lot of precaution in general. Like somebody reached out to me a few weeks ago on LinkedIn for some big project that she claims was this, whatever. And she sent me a PDF, but it wasn't accessible just by opening or previewing it. I had to like enter some website and log in through my LinkedIn. And I'm like, no. And I straight up told her, I was like, hey, do you have like, can you just send me like a JPEG on LinkedIn or like a preview of your deck, like, or even a regular PDF? For security purposes, I don't click external links on my, on my work computer.
Right.
So I take tons of precaution these days. I make sure I vet everybody, and, I have really good contracts and a great lawyer, and everything is pretty bulletproof. But I will say that it still slips through the cracks. Like I still trip up every once in a while. Somebody still can trick me. Like I'm not bulletproof, and I have been tricked since. So
do you think any of this is Billy now that he's out of prison and starting his new thing? And follow-up question, what do you think of Billy and his new thing?
Yeah, I honestly, like, it's weird because he hasn't reached out to me, and I'm like, and he talks about all the marketing as if, and now he's like trying to pitch companies like he's the marketing genius. And I was like, first of all, I've never seen you in a marketing meeting. You literally were never in a meeting. You were always off squirreling off in your little office. So I'm like, why are you now a marketing guy? Like he's
capitalizing on, he's trying to capitalize on the fact that the marketing was the successful piece, like I said.
Yeah.
And so, is that a little annoying?
It's funny. It's like, it's almost sad in a way because he's trying to capitalize on fame that is over. Like 5 years ago when I had my 15 minutes of fame, that's when he could have rode that wave, but obviously he was in jail. And now that he's out, he's like trying to just squeeze some like fame out of it or like some attention. And so I'm like, yeah, it's kind of sad. All right. Like I don't talk about Fyre Festival like it's my only thing. I've moved on. People obviously ask me about it. I'm like, cool to talk about it, but it's not my thing anymore. Whereas he is riding that wave as if it's his only thing. So, whatever.
And so you run, just to be really clear, you run an agency now. What's the name of that? Mm-hmm. Just like kind of bring us up to like current, like you run an agency. Obviously you're much more careful about your clients. I'm assuming you've only had the one client that's been in prison, but I don't know. You can fill us in if there's some updates. But
no other clients in prison.
So you run an agency and you're approaching, is there anything else you're approaching differently about your career or personal life? Because I think it's impossible to say that this isn't just a professional experience. This is a super, like, it affects you as a person. So is there anything about your personal or professional life that is just kind of forever altered based on this life experience?
Yeah, I think, I started after Fyre, when I left 6 months later, I kind of went I went to Thailand to like relax. I was like, I'm going to go to like learn how to dive and kind of like connect with nature and like, find myself. So I'm out there and really trying to not do anything social. And then as I'm chilling, I get this like email or whatever from the founder of, or the founder's son of Planet Hollywood. And also one of like my friends who is, Blade, like one of the first employees at Blade, the like the Uber helicopter company in New York.
Yeah.
And both really wanted me to come help them with like little things. Well, Planet Hollywood wanted like a massive rebirth of the brand. And I'm like, I don't do this anymore, guys. Like, I don't know what you want from me. And they both kind of pushed me and pushed me and pushed me, and they're like, no, you can't do it, help us, this is, and I'm like, I have no idea how to do this on my own. I've never done this on my own. But then I started thinking more and more. I was like, what did we actually do at Fuck Jerry, like, that I can't do? And I was like, wait. I was like, I did it all. I did it all by myself, you know? Like, all of Fyre was me. Like, not even my boss was involved. I literally wore 50 hats and some. I even took on the VaynerMedia, like, stuff, you know? So all of a sudden, I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm an agency. And I literally went on Delaware website, you know, started an LLC, and I just created a bunch of like proposals and faked it till I made it. I mean, obviously he knew I wasn't really an agency, but he was like, you could do it. He kind of, the founder's son of Planet Hollywood, really believed in me, and I didn't. So that was cool. And since 2017, I've owned the Atomic Milk Group, which is the agency, or Atomic Milk in short. And what I basically do now is creative direction, social strategy, and I bring on influencers and do like influencer marketing for different brands. I don't manage influencers, but I'll bring on influencers to like add them into campaigns. Kind of what I did for Fyre, just in a more like ethical and correct format. It's become, you know, my bread and butter, and everybody kind of knows me for it. So that's been great. But socially, I think it has had some like weird effects on me where like I don't trust as often as I used to. But a friend could still fuck you.
Still get you. Yeah. And I think that's why I asked, like, it does have personal effects in additional to professional. But okay, to kind of close this out, something I would love your personal perspective on, and it relates back to how you met Matty, which is that somehow, no matter how successful and amazing the marketing that you helped build that got everyone to sign up for this thing, it's still minorly eclipsed by the cultural moment that is just the failure of the thing. Like somehow a cultural moment sticks with us, like the cheese sandwich and just the horror. And I'm curious, like, why many things have failed. Like many things fail spectacularly, but not all of them are so entertaining to the world. Like, what about this made it so sticky, so entertaining? Like, people were just like, no matter how much content there was 2 documentaries, people would have watched 4. Like it's just like, no matter how much content there was, people wanted more. Why do you think that is?
So it's funny because I was sitting yesterday with a friend who was in South Africa, and she went to a music festival and said it failed just as miserably. And she was talking about how it was out in the middle of the desert, and like it started raining, and so it turned into like mud, and all the tents got muddy and rainy, and then the second day got canceled, and like no one got refunds or whatever. And I was like, I never heard of it. But when now that I run the Instagram for Fyre, I get tagged all the time. I mean, it's been years, and I still get tagged in festivals that are failing, like all around the world, every week, month, whatever. And no one hears about them or talks about them. And I even know of another friend of mine who was in my position. He was the creative director behind another music festival that also failed spectacularly, and he didn't get paid. And everybody is owed money by this guy, and he just kind of like got away with it because, you know, and nobody made a documentary where my friend was, you know, featured. He's literally my equal in that. And I was like, sorry. But I think what it really comes down to is, first of all, America is, you know, we are living in a reality show at this point. And so the whole world looks at us, and the production that we put behind everything, even like Trump or whatever, like everything is a production. So there's so much to see in like this like cinematic way that it almost feels like you could just keep watching. And it's not just like a little iPhone video that some guy in South Africa was filming. There's really like a ton of really good footage and people tweeting and going live and whatever. And so we are cinematic about our failure. And also, I think the biggest thing is that and I've realized this now through a few things, is everybody loves to see like rich people failing, basically. So I think and like models who are not perfect, and and everyone getting screwed as if it's like some vindictive, and that's what we watch. Like, I don't watch reality shows, but people talk to me after, and they're like, yeah, I love to watch the Kardashians because I watch it and I feel better about myself because they're such losers or whatever. And they say that about like multiple reality shows. Like, I watch this to feel better about myself because these people are failing for me. I even used to get people DMing me on the Fyre account telling me I watch the Fyre Festival documentary every single night before I go to bed because it calms me down. I'm not even kidding. There's like multiple people who watch this regularly for multiple reasons. Like, one person who is an event producer used to message me and be like, I watch this because it makes me feel like I'm doing a good job.
Like,
and
I'm so good at my job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other people are like, I watch this because, I get to just witness these like rich people failing or whatever. And like, it feels so good to watch that and whatever. All these, like, honestly, it's kind of scary and fucked up the way that people think. I don't find any of that shit entertaining. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody really died, I would be still really fucked in
gosh.
I don't even know.
Yeah, thankfully.
So I think people really looked at Fyre as this like, it's like, the same way that the Trump thing is still part of our daily. We're like, he's just constantly failing and we're constantly reporting on it, and constantly there's video and leaked
you can't
like,
look
evidence.
Away. Yeah, you can't look away. And it also has, to your point about like people tagging it in all sorts of other failures, festivals or otherwise, it's like we need sometimes the prime example, like, because Billy went to prison, because a bunch of millennials like paid thousands of dollars, like they didn't just lose $500, they lose $5,000, like, the magnitude of the failure, and then you're right, the fact there's so much footage and it's like mildly comedic, the footage at least, like not being there, it's like we got our example, like we got, and it is sadistic kind of.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matty, you as an artist, like, will manage to take that and realize that people are glad they weren't there, but they do feel like they missed out. Like, it's like, how can both things exist? Like, people don't want to be there. They want to make fun of the people who are there, but then they also want to be like, but I kind of missed out on something. Like, isn't that a twisted thing too?
I still get messages from people that want me to get them in touch with Billy for his like quote unquote Fyre 2.0. Like, people are messaging me thinking that I'm part of it. And they're like, I will do anything to be part of the team. Like, I think this is gonna be sick. And like, you see it in his comments. People are like, go, Billy, go. You're gonna do it. It's gonna be sick this time. And I'm like, what are we doing as a society where we are stoked for people who are criminals and failures, and like the people who are actually doing good are like, it's like the movie Look Up or whatever with Leonardo DiCaprio, where it's like, we really are just putting these idiots on a pedestal, and it blows my mind. I'm still like, what is going on?
I've found that it's a structural issue with the way our social media algorithms are programmed in such that only rage bait stimulates conversation, which then shows up, and that becomes the cultural zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really interesting insight, Matty, because basically, like, zooming before my time, when like people watched 3 television, stations and had a few radio stations, and they all like had these shared experiences, in a way, for something to rise up over the noise to become a shared experience, like something like Fyre Fest is like had to be so colossal of a failure that all of a sudden, like, everyone of a certain age is like at work the next morning talking about it. Like, we as humans, we crave shared experiences. In this case, like, it almost has to be rage inducing to like get there. But yeah, it's a fascinating.
I can't even believe that, like, me bringing pigs into Beverly Hills and a ton of sand and then getting shut down by the police and then reaching out to you was the impetus for this conversation, in which I learned a ton about your character. I learned more about the backstory. I learned about some red flags that I, as an individual working in a creative field, should be paying attention to as I'm interacting with clients and other folks. So thanks for being vulnerable, and thanks for trusting me to have a conversation.
Thanks for not trying to screw me at the time where everyone was trying to get a piece of me,
Oh, we really appreciate you sharing so candidly and sharing so many details. It really helps to understand more of what was happening and what it felt like compared to just like the post narrative. And I think I'll just end with a little joke, which is Billy may have done, I think it was 4 years in prison, but Matty, didn't you do 100 hours of community service too?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the real victim here.
Yeah. It turns out you're not allowed to bring livestock into Beverly Hills without permits, and I was able to do 100 hours of bathroom cleaning.
That's not a small amount of hours. I just want to say.
Yeah, that is a lot for that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like, was it worth it? You got to meet Oren and everything. Like, was the 100 hours? I don't know. You paid for it.
I did create a walking habit where I'd walk from mid-city to downtown, and I practiced my Spanish, and I got to listen to podcasts during my 100 hours of community service. So it was nice. It was fine.
Everybody wins.
Right. Well, Oren, I just want to
everybody loses. I don't know.
Not exactly Billy, maybe, but something like that. Oren, thank you so much for your candor and for sharing everything today. And I think everyone will love listening to this. Thank you so much.
Hope so. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to In the Arena. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like, subscribe, and share by leaving us a review and telling everyone you know. And please feel free to reach out to us on Twitter at inthearena_pod. We'd love your suggestions on who else has an intense experience to share.